Imagine a discovery so massive, so game-changing, that it's being called the most important find in Egypt since Tutankhamun. For nearly a century, the world has been captivated by the treasures of Tut's tomb, a glittering snapshot of pharaonic wealth. But what if I told you archaeologists have found something even bigger? Not a tomb, not a single monument, but an entire city. A lost metropolis swallowed by the desert, its streets and homes perfectly preserved. This isn't a treasure hunt for a single golden mask. This is the unearthing of a complete chapter of Egyptian life, a Pompeii-like settlement. It's a place where we can walk in the footsteps of ancient people, not just pharaohs, and see how they truly lived. This place has been given a name that echoes its significance, the Aten, the lost golden city. Its discovery sends a jolt of pure adrenaline through the world of archaeology. Finding a tomb is incredible, don't get me wrong. It gives us a glimpse into the afterlife beliefs and the immense power of a single ruler. But finding a city? That's a whole different level. It's like finding the entire instruction manual for a civilization. We get to see the workshops, the bakeries, the homes of everyday people. We uncover the industrial and economic engine that powered the grand temples and opulent palaces. This isn't just about gold and jewels. It's about the human story, the daily grind, the community that made the Egyptian empire tick. For 3,000 years, this city lay hidden, a silent testament to a forgotten era. It was founded during the reign of one of Egypt's most powerful pharaohs, Amenhotep III, the grandfather of Tutankhamun. This was a time of unparalleled prosperity and artistic achievement, the absolute zenith of the new kingdom. The empire was vast, wealthy, and stable, and right at its heart was this bustling administrative and residential center, humming with activity. The Golden City is rising, and it's ready to tell its story. The story of this incredible find begins, as so many great discoveries do, with a search for something else entirely. It was September 2020. A team of Egyptian archaeologists, led by the legendary Zahi Hawass, was working near Luxor. Their mission wasn't to find a city. They were looking for the mortuary temple of Tutankhamun. They chose a spot between the temple of Ramesses III at Medinet Habu and the temple of Amenhotep III. It was an area that had been overlooked, dismissed by previous expeditions, just more empty desert. But history has a funny way of hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right person to come looking. The team began their work under the relentless Egyptian sun. The desert is a harsh and unforgiving environment. The heat is oppressive. The wind whips sand into your eyes. The sheer emptiness can be daunting. For weeks, they dug. They cleared sand, layer by painstaking layer. At first, there was nothing, just sand, rock, the occasional piece of scattered insignificant pottery. It's the kind of work that tests your patience. You have to have faith in your research, in the whispers and clues left behind in ancient texts. Then, something changed. As the team dug deeper, they started to notice a pattern. Serpentine walls made of mud brick began to emerge from the ground. These weren't random formations. They were too uniform, too deliberate. They formed lines, corners, enclosures. The excitement on the site must have been electric. This wasn't the foundation of a single temple. It was too big, too complex. The walls kept going, snaking out in every direction. The team realized they had stumbled onto something far more significant than they could have ever imagined. They weren't just uncovering a building, they were uncovering a neighborhood. A lost city was literally rising from the earth beneath their feet. The whispers in the sand had become a roar. Excavating a city is nothing like digging for a tomb. It's a slow, methodical, almost surgical process. You can't just bring in heavy machinery and start scooping. Every inch of soil could hold a priceless clue. The team used simple tools, trowels, brushes, buckets. They worked with the focus of artists, the precision of detectives. The city had been sealed under the sand for 3,000 years, creating a perfect time capsule. The dry desert climate acted as a natural preservative, protecting everything from massive mud brick walls to the smallest organic remains. It was an archaeologist's dream. As they cleared the rooms, an incredible picture began to form. They found houses that still had their original contents, almost as if the owners had just stepped out for a moment. They uncovered pottery vessels, some still containing traces of food. They found tools used by craftsmen, looms for weaving textiles, ovens for baking bread. It was a treasure trove not of gold but of information. These everyday objects are what bring a lost civilization to life. A golden sarcophagus tells you about a pharaoh's death, but a clay pot with dried fish inside tells you what a family had for dinner. The dig site was a hive of activity. Every discovery, no matter how small, was carefully documented. Its location was mapped, it was photographed, and it was cataloged. This meticulous work is what separates archaeology from treasure hunting. The team uncovered a large bakery, complete with ovens and storage containers for grain, big enough to feed a large workforce. They found workshops for making bricks, amulets, and decorative items. This was the industrial heart of the city, the engine room of the empire. One of the most astonishing finds was a collection of burials, some quite unusual, with skeletons with their arms stretched out and one with rope wrapped around its knees. Each skeleton is a biography waiting to be read, helping us piece together the human story of the lost Golden City. Walking through the excavated streets of the Aten is like stepping through a portal in time. The city is so well preserved that you can almost hear the echoes of ancient life. The layout is clear and organized, a main residential area, an industrial section, an administrative district. The houses are not the grand palaces of pharaohs, but the homes of ordinary people. Government officials, priests, artisans. Most are made of mud brick, and they follow a surprisingly consistent design. They have multiple rooms, courtyards, storage areas. Some homes even have their own private ovens and wells. Inside these homes, the details of daily life are everywhere. Beds were found, chairs were found, other simple furniture was found, decorative rings were found, scarabs were found, cosmetic pots were found. A room filled with weaving looms suggests a textile workshop. In another room, they found a large vessel still containing 10 kilograms of dried or boiled meat, with an inscription dating it to the 3rd year of the king's reign, from the slaughterhouse of the stockyard of Ka. It's like finding a 3,000-year-old grocery receipt. The city was clearly a bustling, self-sufficient community. Massive bakery and kitchen areas were uncovered. Rows of ovens, huge storage pots for food, huge storage pots for water. They were producing goods on an industrial scale. Archaeologists found casting molds, amulets and decorative elements, and slag from metal production. This city was a powerhouse, the behind-the-scenes support system for the royal court in nearby Thebes. Even the games of children were frozen in time. Game boards carved into the floors, small stones used as playing pieces. Picture children laughing and playing Senet in a dusty courtyard while parents worked nearby. These simple human touches are what make the discovery of the Aten so profound. They worked, they ate, they prayed, and they played, all within the walls of this magnificent city. The lost Golden City was founded by Amenhotep III, who ruled Egypt from roughly 1391 to 1353 BCE. This wasn't just any pharaoh. He was, honestly, one of the wealthiest and one of the most powerful rulers in all of Egyptian history. His reign was a golden age of peace, prosperity, and incredible artistic achievement. The empire stretched from Syria in the north to Sudan in the south, and tribute poured into Egypt from all corners of the ancient world. Amenhotep III was a master builder, including the Colossi of Memnon, large parts of the Karnak Temple, and sections of the Luxor Temple. This city, the Aten, was his main administrative hub on the West Bank. It was strategically located near his palace at Malkata and near his mortuary temple. This was the engine that powered Amenhotep III's grand building projects and supported his opulent royal court. The city housed the thousands of workers, artisans, and officials needed to run the empire. Here, they produced food, textiles, and the intricate decorations for the temples and tombs. The discovery of so many workshops specializing in different crafts shows a highly organized and specialized economy. This was a place of work, a buzzing industrial zone that was the backbone of the Theban economy during its absolute peak. It was, the Silicon Valley of its day, a hub of innovation and production. Religion, of course, was woven into the fabric of daily life. Archaeologists have found countless amulets, statues of deities, and offering vessels. These items weren't confined to a temple. They were found in people's homes, suggesting a personal and direct relationship with the gods. They prayed for protection, for good health, and for success in their work. The city's very name, the dazzling Aten, refers to the sun disk, a manifestation of the sun god Ra. This name would become incredibly significant in the next generation, foreshadowing a religious revolution that would shake Egypt to its core. Let's paint a picture of an average day in the city of the Aten, 3,400 years ago. The sun rises over the eastern cliffs. Its rays first touch the grand temples of Thebes on the opposite bank of the Nile. Then they spill into the streets of our city. The air is already warm, filled with the smell of wood smoke and baking bread from the communal ovens. A baker, his arms dusted with flour, pulls perfectly formed loaves from a clay oven. The same bread feeds the artisans carving hieroglyphs on a temple wall. It also feeds the scribes recording the day's grain deliveries. This city is waking up, and it has work to do. A potter sits at his wheel, shaping wet Nile clay into a storage jar. A metal worker heats bronze in a crucible, the fire glowing on his face. Weavers sit at their looms, fingers flying as they create bolts of linen. The rhythmic tapping of a chisel on stone, the whir of the potter's wheel, the chatter of workers as they go about their tasks. This is the pulse of the city, a steady beat of creation and production. Out in the narrow streets, a man leads a donkey laden with baskets of fish fresh from the Nile. Women gossip as they collect water from a communal well, their bead necklaces glinting. Children chase each other through the alleyways, laughter echoing off mud brick walls. A scribe, palette and reed, brushes at his belt, hurries toward the administrative district. The city is a living, breathing organism, a complex network of people all playing their part. As evening approaches, the pace slows. Families gather in their homes or courtyards to share a meal. Bread, vegetables, fish, beer. They talk about their day. They share stories. They make offerings to household gods like Bees or Toweret for protection. The stars come out, brilliant in the clear desert sky. The city settles into a quiet hush, resting before another day of labor. It's this intimate daily rhythm of life, so perfectly preserved by the sand, that makes the discovery of the Aten so magical. The city of the Aten thrived under Amenhotep III. It was a vital, humming center of the empire. But then, something strange happened. After the pharaoh's death, his son, Amenhotep IV, came to the throne, and this new king would turn Egypt completely upside down. He abandoned the traditional pantheon of Egyptian gods. In its place, he elevated a single deity, the Aten, the sun disk. He declared it the one true God, the universal creator. It was a radical, shocking move, the first known instance of monotheism. It was a revolution that would have profound consequences for our lost city. To mark this new beginning, he changed his name from Amenhotep, Amun is satisfied, to Akhenaten, effective for the Aten. Then he did the unthinkable. He abandoned Thebes. He moved his entire court, administration, a huge portion of the population, to a brand new capital in the desert, Amarna. And with that move, the golden city on the west bank of Luxor was suddenly abandoned. The ovens went cold. The workshops fell silent. The people just packed up and left. The evidence for this sudden departure is written all over the site. Archaeologists have found houses with valuable items left behind, tools discarded in workshops, pottery filled with food, as if the inhabitants were interrupted mid-meal. It wasn't a gradual decline, it was an abrupt end. This mass exodus was likely an order from Akhenaten. He needed the skilled workers, the artisans, the administrators to populate his new capital. They were forced to move hundreds of miles north to serve their king and his new god. This explains why the city is so perfectly preserved. It wasn't destroyed by invaders or flattened for new construction. It was simply deserted. The desert winds slowly buried the empty streets and houses under a thick blanket of sand. For a few short years, Amarna became the center of the universe, but Akhenaten's revolution didn't last. After his death, his son Tutankhamun restored the old gods, abandoned Amarna, and moved the court back to Thebes. But no one ever returned to the Golden City. It remained lost, a silent ghost town, its story waiting for thousands of years to be rediscovered. The discovery of the lost Golden City of Aten is a breathtaking reminder of what still lies hidden beneath our feet. For more than a century, Egypt has been the world's premier destination for archaeological exploration. We've found the tombs of pharaohs. We've uncovered sprawling temple complexes. It would be easy to think that the age of great discoveries is over. that all the big secrets have been revealed, but this find proves that assumption spectacularly wrong. An entire city, the largest of its kind ever found in Egypt, was lying just below the surface in one of the most heavily explored areas on the planet. This is what keeps archaeologists coming back to the desert. This is what keeps historians coming back. This is what keeps explorers like me coming back. It's the thrill of the unknown, the promise that the next great discovery could be anywhere, waiting for the right person to look in the right place. The excavation of the Aten has only just begun. The team has uncovered a significant portion of the city, but vast areas remain buried. To the north, they believe they will find the city's main temple. To the west, they are searching for the tombs of the city's inhabitants, possibly as grand and untouched as the city itself. Each new section they uncover will add another page to this incredible story. What other secrets does the sand hold? What other cities are sleeping beneath the dunes? What tombs are waiting? What temples lie hidden? The shifting sands of Egypt are like the pages of a book. We've only read a few chapters. There are still pharaohs whose tombs have never been found, like the great Ramesses VIII. There are legends of lost libraries. There are stories of armies swallowed by the desert. For every discovery that makes headlines, there are 100 smaller finds that quietly add to our knowledge and 1,000 more mysteries that remain unsolved. The work is far from over. The story of the Aten is a story of wonder and perseverance. It's a testament to the idea that the past is never truly gone. It's just buried. It inspires us to keep looking, to keep digging, to keep questioning. Every time we think we have a complete picture of ancient Egypt, the desert reaches out and hands us a new revolutionary piece of the puzzle. The sands of Egypt are not a barrier to the past. They are its ultimate guardian. And as long as there is sand, there will be secrets. The quest for knowledge continues. The next great discovery is out there, just waiting to be found.